Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined Doom as she ends her day at episode 566. And the first rule of Mother Club is we do not talk about Mother Club. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
In front of other people.
We just don't talk about it.
I'm glad.
Doesn't matter if it's in front of other people or not.
She specifically said in front of other people.
Yeah, this is so they didn't get in trouble.
That's right. How you guys doing?
Pretty tired.
Same.
Me too. This is going to be a really energetic podcast, isn't it?
Oh, we'll force the energy through.
Did you guys do anything watch anything this week? I guess not. It's going to be a short show.
I was trying to think what we started Loki. I think we talked about that last time. Mm-hmm. Have you guys watched the Disney short, Once Upon a Studio?
I have not. Is that on Disney Plus?
It is on Disney Plus.
Okay.
And it is amazing. It is so good. Basically, it's just kind of a roll call of 100 years of animation and 500 some odd characters show up.
I saw a clip, I think, on TikTok.
It's so well done.
Gave me the feels. Nothing else? Nobody watched anything else? Read anything else?
I'm working my way through. I finally started season 4 of Stranger Things. I never did.
Oh, wow!
I'm 5 episodes into that, and enjoying it. It's been good.
I thought it was a good season.
I'm just not done with it yet, so I don't want to talk about it too much.
Right, right.
Reserving judgment.
Well, you're inching closer to the feature length episodes.
Well, and these ones have been an hour and 15 anyway.
Yeah,
so.
Well, there's I think, isn't there one that's like almost 2 hours or a little over 2 hours, and there's one that's actually almost 2 hours.
Yeah, because I think the last 2 of the season they did that break.
Yeah,
and they're long.
Yeah,
they are.
And I haven't finished the book I'm reading, so almost. I'm getting there on that one too. So.
Yeah, the only thing I did was I started an audio, but I'm hoping to have it as a something new 2-minute review for next week, so I won't talk about it.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Fitz-Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
We are going on a journey, a very long journey, through the world of the Target novelizations in publication order. Every week, we are looking at a new book, talking about Terrence Dicks, Malcolm Hulke, and all our Doctor Who novelization friends. Whatever you do, keep turning the pages. This is Jason Miller of the Doctor Who Literature Podcast, a member of the Direction Point Podcast Network, and you are listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
Well, let's move on to news.
Quite a bit of news.
Yeah, quite a bit of news. They have unveiled the new theme tune at the Doctor Who at 60, a musical celebration. And not only the new theme tune, the 15th Doctor theme as well.
Yeah. Did either of you guys get a chance to listen to them?
I did.
So the new theme tune got me excited, but it's very similar to Murray Gold's themes anyway. So it has some different nods to it and, different parts to it, but it was pretty much, I don't know, I wasn't wowed by it. It was pretty much the same. I did like
for me. It didn't come across like it was a Doctor Who theme until it was well into it.
That's true. The beginning does.
Didn't seem to be there.
I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it at the same level I enjoyed the previous Murray Gold. So, like, you know, it's kind of what we talked about when they announced he was coming back. It was like, well, we know what we're in for.
Right.
You know. Now, does anybody know, or have they said, is Murray Gold back for the duration until further notice, or is he only coming back for the specials?
No, I don't think they've specified, but I think it's under the assumption he's around as long as RTD is.
I think he's back for at least I think he's been writing for.
He obviously wrote the 15th
series.
Well, yeah, I guess if he wrote the 15th Doctor theme, that maybe answered my question, which I didn't get to listen to that one.
What are we on now? Series 15? 14. Series 14 and 15, it sounds like. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was good, but more of the same.
Glenn, what did you think of the 15th Doctor theme?
That I really liked. I was very pleased with that. It's a different sound, and it should be. I mean, each Doctor kind of has a unique theme of their own, and so I thought this one was a well fit and was really nice.
Yeah, I agree. It still has that Murray Goldness to it, and kind of has a shades of I thought the 11th Doctor's theme to it.
A little bit.
I love the 11th Doctor's theme so much that if I hear shades of that, you know, I could be putting that on there too. Who knows?
Yeah. No, I can see where you kind of got that from.
In other news, RTD has said that the specials will not air on the actual 60th anniversary, but there will be something special that day.
Yeah, I saw the article on Doctor Who TV .co.uk that had the kind of the breakdown of Russell's article, but I actually went and read Russell's segment in the Doctor Who magazine, this most recent one, and he says dates. There's some dates to look, besides those, there's some dates to look out for: November 1st, November 17th, and November 23rd. And everybody got excited, and I kind of realized that, November 1st is when they're going to release the entire, -1, catalog of Doctor Who on BBC iPlayer. And November 17th is Children in Need, so they've probably done something for Children in Need. And then November 23rd is the anniversary day. So I have a feeling that November 17th is going to be a little short that they must have shot, which they've talked about recently. I think even in that article, he talked about kind of getting back together, or maybe that was just a rumor mill, that they got a bunch of people together more recently and shot something special for another little mini episode for the anniversary. So I wonder if we get that either for the Children in Need, or that's what we get on the 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
Be interesting to tell, but I think Sean, you had brought up that it sounds like that the specials are probably going to be on those Saturday dates throughout the month, which were the 11th, 18th, and 23rd, or no, 23rd, no, 25th.
25th, yeah.
25th, yeah.
And I think that makes sense. They're going to want to push it to Saturdays to make it a big event television as opposed to midweek television.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we just got lucky that the 50th was on a Saturday.
Yeah.
That's true. In fact, the 20th anniversary ran over Thanksgiving here as well, but it didn't drop on Thanksgiving. We actually think we saw it on the Saturday following, and we saw it in the U.S. The Brits are still mad at us over this, but we saw it in the U.S. before they even saw it on BBC over there. So, but I think that would have been on the 25th as well. So it's not been done yet.
Yeah, that's true. But of course, in today's day and age, I don't know if sticking to Saturdays and plays as much of a role as it probably should. Maybe in the UK, where they're getting more views based off of actual like live television as opposed to streaming,
And
like it does in the U.S. now.
That's true, and it'll be interesting to see how although they do have the ability to
they can release it whenever they want.
Well, what I'm getting at is in the U.S., it's coming to Disney Plus. So is it it drops like Loki or Ahsoka, or is it the first airing runs live like they did with the Toy Story football thing, and then it's available there to rewatch, whenever. And I don't know if it's because for us it'll be a matter of waiting for it to drop. If that's the case, if they decide to do kind of the worldwide premiere like they did with the 50th, where everybody kind of saw it day and date at the same time, then they would have to use that live feature that clearly Disney Plus can do, because like I say, they did that Toy Story football game stream that was live streamed. So
they did the Elton John final concert that way as well.
Oh, did they? Okay, so
it had a specific time.
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably how they'll do it then. I don't know. Time will tell. Well, I guess we'll see. That was the other thing about the next announcement that we were going to talk about, was the 60 years of Doctor Who on the BBC iPlayer -1.
Yeah, tell me more about the iPlayer.
Well, that's just it. I thought, that's exciting that's coming November 1st if you're in the UK, but is it coming to Disney Plus that way too? Are we getting the entire catalog, or is it just in the UK? I know that BritBox still has the episodes on it, so I don't know if the classic episodes, so I don't know if the classics are going to move over to Disney Plus as well, or they're going to stay at BritBox. If that's the case, then you have to have a BritBox subscription to, at least in the US, to see them, unless you've got the DVDs like we do. And
right.
The new stuff will be on Disney Plus, obviously. And is that going to be November 1st when the whole catalog drops? Who knows? I don't know. They're leaving us really in the dark, I feel, here in the US as far as how things are going to be distributed here, but it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it seems like they would want to hype it if they are going to drop it on Disney Plus too.
Mm-hmm.
It's also interesting that it looks like, it's not looks like, the very first story, Unearthly Child, will not be a part of that.
Yeah.
60 years of Doctor Who on the BBC iPlayer.
Have you guys been following that drama?
I just saw the article about it today and read it. It's interesting.
I got caught up today, yeah.
Yeah, so the listeners that don't know, get a little. There's a guy named Steph Colburn. His father's Anthony Colburn, passed away back in the 1970s, and he's the one that wrote An Unearthly Child. They call Tribe of Gum, I think, sometimes. But that whole first set of episodes that comprises of Unearthly Child, Anthony Colburn wrote it. Well, apparently Steph Colburn has the rights to it because it was his father's. His father's passed away, so he controls the estate. Supposedly has told the BBC that he will not allow them to have broadcast rights for. Now, this is just for BBC iPlayer. Early on in this, apparently, there was a lot of people that were worried that it was going to go away from Apple TV. Well, it's still, you can still buy the episodes on Apple TV. You can still buy the episodes on Amazon. You can, in fact, I think somebody checked BritBox and it's still on BritBox. So I think what's happened is, and of course, there's not a lot. This is all kind of playing out in public opinion, but apparently it's just specific to the iPlayer stuff. Every time that the stuff that has intellectual rights tied to it to other people has to be renegotiated when it goes to a new platform. So it sounds like right now iPlayer is the only thing affected by this.
Right now. But he did comment that as the rights came up on other platforms, that he would be fighting BBC on them.
Yeah. So there's some talk, and again, this isn't set in stone either, that the rights have already been worked out for the Blu-ray. So hopefully that means they won't have to admit it from the season 1 Blu-ray or Hartnell's season 1 Blu-ray.
I think they couldn't if they'd be stupid to admit it.
So the other thing, though, I think is this just reading the back and forth on this guy is just, he's doing it. He's being vindictive about it is what he's doing. He doesn't feel like his father was treated right. He asked, actually, my understanding is that the BBC offered him $20,000 for the rights to this for BBC iPlayer, which is a lot of money. He wants more, but they can't offer him more because there's some sort of union contracts that the cap on it is $20,000. And they offered him the cap. They offered him everything they can within their contractual obligations. So he's just being obstinate now at this point, which is sad for fandom because this, 60th anniversary year. Did you read any of the back and forth between Ian Levine and him? It wasn't even so much the back and forth of them arguing, so much as reading the comments that followed and how many people were saying, wow, I didn't think I'd ever say this, but I agree with Ian Levine.
Fandom has come full circle.
So
again.
Yes.
Well, there's a twofold issue here at work. I think the first and foremost is pay your writers. Okay, now this guy didn't have anything to do with the episode. It was his dad, and his dad was a staff writer for the BBC, who happened to write An Unearthly Child. And for all of the historical import that An Unearthly Child has attached to it, and we've even talked about this, where it's amazing how much episode 1 is responsible for so much of the show to follow. And then episodes 2, 3, and 4 are just kind of a standard adventure.
Yeah, they're not even that great.
And wasn't he a large contributor to those 2, 3, and 4? Not even episode 1.
Well,
episode 1 gets significantly rewritten by someone else.
That's the argument.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Waris Hussein, the director of those, has actually chimed in as well and said that a lot of that, even the Tribe of Gum stuff, a lot of that was heavily rewritten. And I don't think even Anthony Coburn, the dad, was all that bothered by the fact that it was rewritten so much, that it was rescripted. And
he still got the rights to it. So,
yeah. Yes, so unfortunately, he's not here to be able to have any say. And if you dig into this Steph Colburn's backstory, the guy is nuts. He's really crazy. He's a racist homophobe. I'll jump right out and say that he's just, if you look at some of the stuff he has said on Twitter. But that aside, it's just, I think I agree, pay your writers, but
yes,
here's the thing. When that was written and reconstructed, the guy wasn't shorted anything. He got the money that he wrote for it, and he retained the rights to the stories. Everything was done across the board there.
And to be clear, part of where the perceived slight is that this writer, Anthony, submitted 3 other stories to Doctor Who
that never got made,
never got permitted, never got to, and they were all turned down for various reasons. And so he severed his ties with the show.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that, that's on him. Okay, whatever. If you want to talk about making some reparations for, funds that you did not receive as a writer, yes, I'm all for that.
Yeah. I would back you 100%.
The fact that, you were contracted to do a job, you should get paid for that job. Yes, absolutely. I'm 100% behind that. If you want to talk about the fact that you had a greater role in shaping Doctor Who as it is today that is not being recognized, okay, maybe that's something we can have a conversation about. But that's something that, again, as you've pointed out, Waris Hussein and all of the other people. You've got Sidney Newman, you've got Verity Lambert. There are a lot of cooks in the kitchen that got this to where it is.
Well,
and as the book we reviewed last week
book we
talked
read
about how many people, I mean, there's even more.
I mean, so it's not something that I think you can kind of latch down and claim is yours. And as his 50th anniversary lawsuit, trying to claim that the BBC did not have the rights to TARDIS, right. It's like, come on, dude, you're being very petty at this point.
It's not like you're Victor Pemberton and actually invented the sonic screwdriver.
Exactly.
Although I don't think that wound up being in the script either. That was an on-set thing, wasn't it?
No, that one's
was in the script.
Yeah, I think it was in the script, and he. Well, you know what? Now that you say that, Sean or Keith, I do think you're right. I think we'd seen something more recent that said that it was they came up with it on the spot, and the creator that actually was the director, and I forget who directed that, but it was the director that actually came up with that because they needed a way to get the plate off of the pipe that he looks into, and they came up with that in order to make it quick and easy to get the screws out. So now that I say that, I think that came to light just recently that it really wasn't even Pemberton. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
So, that's the first part of this. But now when you factor in his comments about who is at currently, and how dissatisfied he personally is with it, and how he thinks everything the BBC has done is just shambles in it. Okay, so now in my mind, you've moved very far away from having any kind of legal fight for more money or recognition, and moved purely over here into you're being bitter and spiteful and petty about it. And it really calls to mind the guy that wrote Thunderball for the James Bond movies, and then continued to remake Thunderball and try to sue MGM and the Broccoli's and everybody under the sun because he felt like he had rights to the character as opposed to just the script. And it's just, go away.
Yeah,
just really go away at this point, because it is what it is. And what I foresee happening is that, they're going to ignore him for a while. We're going to get through the 60th. And then if it becomes an issue, somebody at Disney will open the purse strings and buy the guy off. I mean, I think that's what it's going to come down to, is some hush money or something, just to purchase the rights outstanding and say, okay, you're done. Go away now.
I agree that things will be worked out. I disagree that Disney would have anything to do with it. They don't have much at stake in this, at least that we know of right now.
Well, I disagree. Seems like the BBC kind of has to just do a waiting game and go, okay, we'll wait.
Yeah.
Oh, the fervor over the 60th is done, and now not as many people are clamoring to watch the original first story. Okay, we'll give you 10,000 for it now.
Well, I think a lot of it will also depend on these, in my mind, frivolous, but on these lawsuits, because if any one of them comes down in his favor, well, now there is a danger to the entire brand over what could be construed as his dad contributed to the legacy of Doctor Who. And so I think that's something where there is, an eye to be kept on it. I don't think he'll win.
You're right. It does become probably problematic at that point. But if you look back at that 2013 attempted lawsuit on claiming right on the TARDIS, he had to walk away from that because there was no judge that would agree with him on that. And so I have a feeling that the same thing would happen here as well if he was really going to. I think right now he's got the best control he's got is keeping it off of whatever next platforms haven't been negotiated. That's the only thing. That's the only card he has, I think, because ultimately they do have to. And that's one of the things that I both admire and is frustrating about how the UK does their intellectual IP. I absolutely love that the writers continue to have control over their IP this many years later. It just does, what it does is when those IPs get passed on to estates or to kids, and there are a lot of kids that are very cooperative, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying these kids don't deserve those same residuals and same stuff for what a parent did, but on the other hand, if you're just, that's your legacy, is that somebody else did the work and you're getting paid for it, then it's kind of it's kind of a weird, sticky situation there with me. But I both appreciate and am frustrated with it, because that kind of thing would hardly ever happen here. But then again, because that thing doesn't happen here, a lot of writers don't end up getting the shaft here in the U.S. more so than they do probably overseas. So,
yeah. Well, you got to keep in mind too that so much of this was done before. I mean, it was a one and done at the time it was written. That was it. Right. So of course they're going to say, go ahead and keep the rights to these characters, because
we're not. If we want to use them again, we can. It's not like there's going to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at
Well, it's not like they're ever going to re-air this. I mean, who in their right mind would watch TV more than once?
I look at the Terry Nation stuff. I mean, they had to. I think the BBC finally did a long-term thing for the rights for the Daleks with the Terry Nation estate, and they've got that sealed up for a long time because they were smart. They know that's such a big part of Doctor Who. They had to do something with that, but
yeah.
Who knows? Time will tell. It just puts a little bit of a damper there on that, especially on that first, November 1st target date when everything goes to iPlayer. There's going to be the most significant piece. It's going to be missing.
Yeah.
Plus the 3 episodes that follow.
The other interesting thing of that is there's going to be a website that's going to simultaneously launch, which is an online archive of the show's history with everything from interviews with cast to written documents, long unheard audio, and behind the scenes photos. Together, they tell the story of the groundbreaking series through the 60 archive gems for the 60th anniversary. Even we'll have stuff with Sidney Newman and other documents that you can look at all on this website on November 1st.
Oh, that's cool.
That is really cool.
I'm looking forward to seeing that once it comes out, especially since we don't know if we'll have the full catalog here in the U.S.
Just on our DVD shelves.
I have the full catalog sitting about 2 feet from me.
Yeah, my PlayStation doesn't like DVDs anymore for some reason.
Oh, no.
So
well, that's too bad.
I have to look at getting something else.
This is Tim Trelaw.
This is David J. Howe.
I'm Peter Purvis.
I am Sadie Miller. This is Lauren Cornelius.
Larry, it's Fraser.
For all things in the Doctor Who collecting world and beyond, the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. I'm Larry Van Mersbergen, your host, and I've been collecting for 42 years. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex on the Direction Point Podcast Network.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to Traveling the Vortex.
Well, should we move on to our reviews?
Oh, let's.
Doomsday, Dying Hours.
From Big Finish Productions, the worlds of Doctor Who. Doomsday, Dying Hours.
Down and, well, I won't say safe yet. Down and not immediately dead will do for now. So, what next, Terry?
Tracking data uploading to your scanner.
Any intel on the target?
No, you'll find out when you find them.
Hold on to your hat.
But Zephon, yeah, I'm not wearing it. So you're really the Doctor? You?
Yes, I'm the Doctor. Why wouldn't I be?
Well, you don't act like him. Dem.
Well, change brings change, doesn't it? Clearly, I'm a more proactive incarnation than you're used to, that's all.
Bloomin' dangerous, more like.
That too. Silent. You've been here all along, haven't you? Watching me from the moment I arrived. Misdirecting us.
You will obey my commands.
I will not. I obey.
What is your purpose on Santhea?
To kill Charlak.
She's got pictures of the crowd. Some kind of list.
Yeah, she saw my face among them and assumed I was a member.
The Doctor's not a crowd member. He's made stopping them a personal mission. Doctor, who is this fool?
The name is Doom, and you have a very unfortunate mouth.
Get out of my way, Doom.
I really wouldn't pull that trigger if I were you.
Yeah? Well, you're not me!
5, 4, 3. Be good to each other. Bye!
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
Dawn of an Everlasting Peace. Venus, 3975. The day of the non-aggression pact. The perfect, ironic location for an assassination. But Doom's mission is about to become much more complicated thanks to an explosive plot to undermine the treaty itself.
We doing these one at a time?
I figured we would, since they are standalone stories.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
It was all right.
Crickets on that one.
How long did it take you, Sean, to realize it was Dalek's master plan people?
I kind of had an inkling of suspicion at the very beginning when they were talking about the solar system and the Big Four. But then, or this huge conference, this huge galactic peace treaty, and the Big Four, and then they immediately rattled off the representatives of 4 planets within our solar system. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of like, back in Dalek Master Plan, where we were the bigwigs. And then they kept saying SSS.
Yeah.
And it just lodged a little bit. My brain kept tickling on that, but I couldn't remember what the name of the Space Security Force, that Terry Nation came up with was. And so it was probably well into the middle third of it before I finally put 2 and 2 together and came up with 5 and went, aha, I see what you did there. And those elements of it I liked. Doom, I didn't particularly care for in this one.
She's pretty, ruthless and then not ruthless enough at the same time.
Right, exactly.
Very, very inconsistent, I think.
And I think that held with, in my humble opinion, I think this is not only this box set, but the Doom story overall really needed a script editor to polish the loose edges a little more than what we got. But I think Doom was very inconsistently written throughout this box set. And one minute she's almost vicious. And it's like, well, okay, she's an assassin. But then she's got this good streak throughout her, which is really evident in this one. And, she's the heroine, so we can't totally have a bloodthirsty killer. I get it. But, man, she seemed like she was jumping through an awful lot of hoops. But then she would turn around and do something that was, vicious,
Well,
okay,
I think
I'm going to leave you here with these strangers. Thanks. It's like, oh, okay.
That's
what the old man.
That's what lends to this starts off the unevenness of just this box set, Because you're right. There's times where she's just very callous about things, and is like, move on to the next thing. And then there's some times where she's very sympathetic, and it's just she falls in and out of it so much. I think after we've talked about these two elements we're reviewing, I think we'll talk about the Doom series as a whole here at the end. But I will say that I think this is one of the things that was a detriment to this, is I think that Doom needed to grow as a character from the beginning to the end. And unfortunately, it doesn't feel like that happens. It's just a series of stories where Doom shows up, even though there's this ongoing story arc. And so I'm like you. I like the fact that it had the delegates from the
Ballot Master Plan.
Yes. And then, and I didn't pick up right away on it, but as I started thinking about it and they started talking more about it, I thought, oh, okay, this is where they've gone with this. This is actually that peace conference that we're talking about that sets this up. And then, of course, when they started saying SSS, Space Security Service, I was like, oh, well, that's the group that Brett Vion and Sarah Kingdon were part of. And of course, when I listened to Jacqueline Rayner talk about it in the interviews, and she said
the bonus features,
this hadn't been done before. And I was like, well, kind of had. I mean, a Big Finish even did. They didn't use the delegates, but they did use the SSS. They haven't used them much, but they did have that Defenders set that they did based on Terry Nation's unaired pilot in the U.S. So we've had the SSS before. We've had Sarah Kingdom in relation to this SSS before too. So it has been done, but I appreciated the fact that she did find a little nugget that she could go into, and I think she sounds like she'll maybe try to revisit kind of this era and the SSS.
Yeah, it sounds like she's got at least one more coming.
Yeah, so.
And I certainly hope so, because again, those were the parts that I really liked. It didn't crystallize for me until they went and did the flashback and were describing how Dad died.
Right, with the
he just basically just aged to death, and I went, aha!
Yep.
Time disruptor, got it.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that took me out of this was the concept of this old man, or this toddler in an old man's body, I thought was intriguing. I just don't think they pulled it off so well. I think that he was, if you know a 3-year-old, this guy was not.
No, this guy was a 2-year-old.
Yeah, and
this was a person a kid who could barely, and not all 3-year-olds can talk very well.
But they have a little more wherewithal than this guy did.
Yes,
at that stage in life,
having a 3-year-old son, I know this.
Yeah,
and so of course, even through the course of the 3 years so far, of year 3, it's grown, and I can kind of rationalize that maybe this kid is early in the 3-year, but it still seems like he should have played it a little further along than what he really did.
Agreed. So that took me on the story, and then it did have, I thought, the right balance of comedy and sadness or emotion as well. I didn't get as emotional as the actors that talked about how emotional it made them in the end. I didn't think it was all that great, but her getting to see her husband again the way he was, before the incident, and the boy getting to have some, closure and say goodbye. I suppose that was okay, but it was just, okay. Didn't really tug at any heartstrings for me.
If she had the updated hollow suit that we see in the next story, that would have had a much bigger impact, because it would have actually had the husband's voice.
Right.
But because it was still Doom's voice, the whole time in my head I was thinking, well, why isn't this kid saying, "You look like Dad, but you don't sound like Dad"?
Him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, it's that. That should have been thought through a little bit more. A
2-year-old you might have duped. A 3-year-old was not going to,
Even a 2-year-old, I think they would look at somebody, even though they looks like somebody, and still would recognize that it's not their voice.
That's probably true.
You sound, at the very least, you sound funny.
Right. Yeah.
Comment would have made it a little bit easier to swallow.
Which ruined the emotional impact of the scene.
Right.
Yes.
So the better way to fix it is on the tech end, and just she looks and sounds like Pop, and now it's fixed.
But then that
little
undercuts. But then that undercuts the next story.
Yeah,
so it's kind of
because Destiny does have the upgraded suit, so the voice is different.
Well, they just aired them in the wrong order.
Yeah. I really liked all of the delegate stuff and what this wife was trying to do, and all of that. I pretty much liked all of the story except for the Doom elements of it.
Yeah.
Same. And that's really sad because it's Doom's Day. It's her story. And I don't know why I set myself up for this. I was really looking forward to getting okay, so we've been going through and it's 24 hours, so it's an hour at a slot. And now we've got a Big Finish box set that we're going to finally see some of these loose threads pulled together into this. And something in the back of my head said, don't go there. You're setting yourself up. You're not going to get that. And it's like, oh no, they'll do it. I trust Big Finish. They'll pull it off. And then this one ended and I went, well, so much for that. Because it is so much just a mission for Doom. In fact, it's played off. We don't have any indication of that kind of constant ticking clock that has been present throughout the rest of the run. In this, we don't get the sense of impending doom. We don't get any mentions of death or that she's on a time crunch. In fact, there's no real mention of the overall arcing story at all until she gets into the supercomputer,
right?
And then all of a sudden reveals her plan of, oh well, I figured I could use this to find the doctor. Oh, okay. I mean, just.
Well, and at that point, it sort of feels like it's
tacked on.
Tacked on, yeah exactly.
Yeah. Now, I struggled with that one because at first I was upset, and because it's like you don't necessarily want to ruin the reveal, but at the same time, it would have been nice to have been let in on it that she has more than more of a plan than just go kill a guy.
Right, exactly.
There's a reason why she chose this mission.
Exactly.
And we didn't get to know that until.
And it would have been weird for Doom to explain the plan to herself. And so you would have
could have explained it to Terry. She's talking to Terry throughout this entire box set.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to bring Terry back into it, let's give her somebody to explain things to, or just I needed that moment. And then when it finally showed up, it was like, well, okay. And it felt like it should have been a bigger bit than what it infinitely wound up being. But then, of course, it didn't wind up being anything anyway, because Mom has to go in and confuse the computer. And then
what's so ironic about it all also is the fact that this is such a near miss. She's looking for the first Doctor, and she is just before the Daleks master plan.
Right.
They could have done so much more with that aspect of it to make it. I've only got 24 hours, but I'm too early in this time frame.
Right.
It's some.
We could have bounced all through the 12 hours of Dalek Master Plan. That would have been really interesting to continually revisit that story, but oh well.
Well, let's move on to A Date with Destiny.
A romantic dinner turns life-threatening for an unsuspecting human in 2007, but this time Doom has competition. And if she loses, then her last chance to find the Doctor could be snatched away. Cue an action-packed chase through the streets of London. But has Doom met her match?
I'll give this one a little dun-and-a just because it was fun. It still suffers from pretty much all of the same things I complained about in the previous story. That she's just kind of there, and this is one of those where Doom feels very ineffectual and not at the top of her game, and very much compared to Destiny, you're just not as good an assassin.
Right.
And when Destiny's making her pitch to, we're going to do a thing, and we've got Brian the Ood, and we've got so-and-so, and we've got so-and-so, and all these, and I'm thinking to myself, you don't need Doom. She's
everybody not on your
list.
Great.
Yeah. Everybody on your list is better than what you've done. And again, the ticking clock element of it was more destiny driven. Well, we've got to do something before Destiny shows up, and then Destiny would show up, but we don't resolve Destiny. We just move to the next location and wait for Destiny to show up.
Right.
And then Destiny shows up, but we don't deal with Destiny. It just it was that kind of thing throughout. But the character interactions between Doom and Jackie were fun, and between Doom and Destiny were fun.
Yeah, that's the strongest point of this is the acting between those women was just phenomenal. I mean, it was the chemistry that they had, I think, really worked for this story and elevated it above those points that you pointed out as well. I mean, anything that I listen to with Camilla Kuduri, I just absolutely love her as Jackie Tyler. I always thought she was annoying in the series, but the more I hear her in audio stuff, I just love her. I think because she's had a chance to develop the character. They've had a chance to play with the character and make her more than sort of that one-dimensional mom figure that she was, nagging and worried about Rose the whole time. They've really been able to explore her character better, and I think that makes this good too, because you get the Jackie you expect at the beginning of this, but you also get a Jackie that has grown in this as well and recognizes, that she's not so self-centered anymore. She does think about other people, the implications that things can have relating to other people. And so I really, really like that about her in this story.
Yeah, they've really given her a lot more depth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've pulled a sixth Doctor and made her endearing.
Yes.
And so it's like now it's, more Jackie.
Yep.
Things I never thought I would say.
Well, what's almost frustrating about this story is there are times where Doom is very competent, like near the end, and all the different ways she gets Jackie out of the scrape with Destiny, but then still somehow Destiny winds up getting the upper hand. It's so inconsistent even within the story to keep, I guess, Doom from just running circles around Destiny. I don't know why.
That's just it. Doom's just one step ahead of Destiny the whole time, and I'm thinking,
a step almost.
Yeah, well, and I'm thinking, okay, this is good. This kind of feels in line with what they have built with the Doom character in certain stories. But then, it just kind of then she's a step behind at the end, and it's like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It had a very Grosse Point Blank feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very okay with that.
All right. Well, let's do the next one, The Howling Wolves of Zanfir.
A warring world of wolves. Doom's target. Doom's target turns out to be the puppeteer of the warring Zan, a Silence. But what if she's already completed her mission? How will she know? What if this wasn't even her mission in the first place? No time to waste. The countdown is on.
Bum, bum, bum.
Did you like this one?
I
got
like this one.
really bored with this one.
Really?
And I found myself having to back up and listen to parts because I would zone out so badly because it just didn't feel like anything was... It wasn't even that nothing was happening. It's just there was always this urgency in it that really didn't feel like it was necessarily there, like it needed to be there in certain parts. And part of that's because they were, encountering Silence and then they would forget and they would be, sent off into another direction when trying to figure out, wait, we were headed this way. Why are we going this way? And I just kept getting, it just felt really mundane the whole time. And so I kept having to back up and listen to things again because I'd miss stuff because I just zone out on this.
Yeah, for me, this one was confusing, but not in a clever way. It was just seems disjointed and confusing, and not in a way that congealed all together at the end. That was like, oh, that was clever. I see what you guys did. It was just confusing to be confusing because they could use Silence that wipe their memories.
Yeah.
I think it definitely is not greater than the sum of its parts, but I really liked the parts. the idea of tackling the silence, which for me, it was the first time since the episode that we've kind of come back to that. So I was ready. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. How are you going to do that? And so I kind of bid on that. I enjoyed the wolf armies, and communicating via howl and
how
resonating
the
through
howl
the
would
planet.
resonate. Yeah. That was
all
that's
very
a clever
cool.
idea. Yeah.
And then to wind up turning around and using that as the solution to the problem, that the howl can resonate at a certain frequency that will cancel out the silence. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I give it full points for that. Glenn, you are not wrong. There was a lot of manufactured hurry up, simply because, I've got to go. I've got to get my mission done. But then, how long do we spend roaming around canyons? And if you only have an hour, and you've been dropped into a war zone, that seems, okay. That's not.
Yeah, how many times have you forgotten how long it's been? I mean,
how long did we spend down in the caverns?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, and how bad is the silence at this? If he had to continually keep redirecting them within the confines of that hour.
Wait, were the silence in this? I forgot.
I thought so, but I don't remember. So yeah, there was a lot of. Again, the overall Doom story arc suffered because of what feels like the writer wanted to do this kind of cool story. And okay, yeah, this story in itself was cool, but it doesn't necessarily then translate to the bigger goings on.
Well, and it's one of those stories of, I got a cool idea. What if she has to go assassinate a silent? And they're like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. And didn't think about how it fit into the bigger picture of even how she's trying to find the doctor.
And then sat down and said, oh, wait, now I got to write this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you didn't reverse engineer the story for the needs of the overall narrative. You just had a cool idea and then had to fit the narrative around it.
Yeah, and Big Finish has done silence before, and they've done a really good job in the Unit series.
They have?
So the fact that
I've forgotten.
You haven't even listened to it.
No, I haven't.
The fact that they've done it in the past and then did it again and didn't do as good of a job is a little bit frustrating as well.
Mm.
And the fact that she didn't even kill him.
Yeah,
She
right.
sicked the two wolves on him. It wasn't even her kill.
This isn't the first time. This isn't the first time she's done that, though, taking credit for another person's kill.
That goes back to the inconsistency of Doom. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, it's got to be me that does it. Well, not this time.
Right.
Well, which is it, lady? Come on.
I think there could have been a lot more to this story that they could have done a better job on.
Yeah. All in all, I think
I feel that way with this whole box set. There was a lot of really great ideas that were left on the table that didn't get fleshed out.
They should have done more of these stories with the Doctor instead of Doom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this particular story, I think, is just kind of forgettable. Should we move on?
Waiting all week for that, haven't you?
Should we move on to the crowd?
Like you wrote that for your review and then just grinned and sat back and went, I can't wait to spring that on the guys. It wasn't memorable.
The crowd. Follow the crowd. That's what they say, right? In this case, however, devastation, murder, and destruction follow this particular crowd, Doom's next target. But amongst them, an unfamiliar face with a familiar name. Could this be Doom's salvation?
This is a good story. If it wasn't couched in the Doomsday arc.
Yeah.
It's clever. We get Eighth Doctor and Charlie back together again. I mean, obviously this is set. This is
their time
frame.
This
is set during their timeline before. But the idea,
the type of story fits within their run.
Right. And the idea of these, beings that feed off of death and despair. And that's not that hasn't been done before, but it was really kind of clever to the point that they've become addicts and gluttonous, and so that they end up having to cause situations because he's visited all these scenes or these tragic scenes and absorbed. It was just such a clever story, and the Doctor and Charlie, setting traps and trying to work this out, and then Doom coming in and kind of bumbling things up and taking out the, just throwing a wrench in the spanner, or a spanner in the works, whatever. And a great story, but then ultimately where it falls down is this, she like reverts back to type in this, but a type that she didn't need to be, because we had the very first story where she's had some compassion for this, for her target and all of this, and then she's done that before, but here she's back to very cold and callous, and she's been trying to find the Doctor. She knows the Doctor. I mean, she's obviously read the best hits of the Doctor, because through this entire story arc, she knows a lot of things about the Doctor. So she's well versed in his past and his history. So she should know when she encounters a version how the Doctor's going to act and react. And she doesn't believe that it's him at first, and so I was kind of okay with that, her still kind of taking her own route with things. But once she believes that it's him, she's looking for this guy who has all the answers for her. This may not be the right incarnation, but if he has all the answers for her, she should trust that any incarnation she runs into is going to have a better idea how to do things than she does. And that's what is so frustrating about this, because we've come from the... I'm going to jump ahead here because I think it just needs to be said. This story arc, the best thing about it is that it's linear. I love the fact that they try to do these cross-media things. I think they're a lot of fun. They can get expensive. I understand the complaints for that. But with this one, Sean, I think you said it earlier, they needed a script writer for this that was on board with everything and just kept things consistent, because she needed to start out as the best assassin in the universe, and she needed to be cold and callous and calculating. And then by the time we get to this story, she should have grown as a person and been more sympathetic because this is our heroine. This is the gal we have followed through this entire story arc. And she just doesn't grow as a character in the right way. And so it's increasingly frustrating to couch her into this, what could have been a really good story with a really good Doctor companion pairing. And it just completely goes off the rails at the end because of her actions. And what is very frustrating about this one.
Well, and the other thing is, it's obvious that one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing, because the way Doom is written in this, it's like she hadn't come across the Doctor at all previously in this entire run.
Right.
Where just in that book, she was with two of them.
Yep.
Granted, she didn't get a chance to talk to them about what she wanted to talk to them about, and she gets more time this time. But still, it's like she had never actually met him before.
Right.
And it was so inconsistent from what we've had in the past.
There's that word again, inconsistency. Yeah, and Doom is guilty of a lot of inconsistency in this one. Her attack at the beginning, where she wipes out 7 or 8 of the crowd, is almost gleefully violent. I mean, she really comes across as mass murderer, extraordinaire.
It's not even assassin. It's more like psychotic.
Yeah. I mean, it was not a targeted blast. It was just mowing people down and she was very upbeat about the whole thing. For which the Doctor quite rightly admonishes her. And it's like, well, that's not the Doom that we've kind of come to expect throughout parts of this, is that she's a little more concerned with collateral damage, and she's a little more of a surgical scalpel. Even in the James Bond episode where she's blowing up planets, it wasn't quite to that extent.
Right.
But then she turns around and meets up with the doctor, and we get a whole nother round of guess who, where she's refusing to believe that this guy is the doctor. And then when presented with the evidence that he is the doctor, she reverts to retail Karen.
Mm-hmm.
And retail Karen is that woman who comes in and yells at you and then asks for your help.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe you did this. Everything's wrong. I need you to fix this. Well, if you need me to fix this, you better change your tone a little bit because I'm not inclined to help you right now. And again, the doctor, quite rightly, kind of refuses to help her. I think the doctor was also a little inconsistent. For as good as the pairing of the Eighth Doctor and Charlotte Pollard is, and I will always and forever love to listen to Paul McGann and India Fisher, there was something off that didn't quite gel about McGann's doctor in this one. And normally, you guys know me, normally I'm always, even in a bad story, I'm saying, oh, but Paul McGann was good. And this time it was like, yeah, there was something that didn't quite jive. And I don't know what it was, but his relationship with Charlie was there, but the tone was off. And he was a very stern doctor through the whole thing, not just dealing with Doom, but kind of in general. And the kind of playful humor that I come to associate with the Eighth Doctor was very missing. And Doom really took advantage of that because she just kept twisting that knife.
Mm-hmm.
And, he would get frustrated with her, and then I would get frustrated with her. It was just like, oh my God, can we just let death have her at this point? I mean, she managed to do a complete 180 and become unsympathetic as the hero.
Yep. You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
So that was frustrating. But I loved the idea of the crowd. As you guys have said, it's been done before, but it was a well done variation of it. And
I honestly would have liked a little bit more of the historical exploration than what we got, because we spent so much time focusing on Doom instead.
And how sad is that when we're talking about, wow, I wish it was more of a historical.
That Reverend guy that they were talking about, I recognize the name, so I was like, oh, that could have actually been an interesting, story.
Yeah, just, again, there were parts of it that were like, okay, cool, and then the rest of it was just, all right. Let's get to the resolution.
Well, speaking of resolution, shall we move on to the last piece of this whole puzzle, which is the James Goss written... what was the name?
Out of Time.
Out of Time. I was going to say one more time, and that's not right. Out of Time.
The final hour, the final mission. Doom's day is drawing to an end, and the Doctor is nowhere in sight. Besides death, what is awaiting her back on New Venice?
Bum, bum.
The Doctor's nowhere in sight. They told her where to go to find the Doctor.
Well, he's not in sight right away.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
This felt like such a huge letdown for me. When you're building a multi-story event, you really need to knock it out of the park at the end. And unfortunately, I think this fizzles. I liked the idea that the reason why she's dying is because she's set up this paradox by being sent to assassinate her former self. The problem is she doesn't remember that it happened until it's happening, which I suppose that's one of those time being rewritten,
why it's a paradox.
Wibbly wobbly things, but it seemed kind of like a, this will be clever. and then it's not so clever, because then the fix is to go back and shoot her shooting herself, which that's going to fix the paradox. And then she doesn't even
bigger paradox.
Yeah, well then she doesn't even kill herself in that situation. She just wounds herself so that she can't kill her previous self, which I suppose is a clever fix for making sure that nobody dies.
She doesn't die. Yeah.
But now that again she's failed her last hit because and her first hit, if you want to be honest, because now she doesn't do it. But I just and then, if that's not enough, I thought, okay, this is sort of a clever resolution. That makes sense, and death isn't literal. It's this, it's this
paradox creature.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's Terry that set her up this whole time to wipe
Terry
out.
Has taken out the rest of the lesser
to wipe
order
out
of
the
Oberon.
rest. So does that mean
we just saw Brian?
Does that mean
not
Brian's
that long
dead
ago.
now? It's just.
And what about what's her name in the last story we just talked about?
Well, Destiny's she's not
Destiny.
she's not
obviously
she's not in the order anymore. So she was trying to.
I guess maybe
and
that's
Brian's
it.
not either. I guess, and she's already actively recruited him. So
yeah,
there wasn't much.
He was on the list. We don't actually know.
That's true. That's true. Oh, I forgot about that one when they were talking about the acronym Lesser Order of Oberon. The acronym is LOU, like the bathroom. Yeah, no, this silly thing fizzled out, and that just was a huge letdown for this entire event for me, because while we've had some good things in there, we had the book that we all really liked. I think the comic stories we gave relatively favorable reviews on those, but it just, I don't know, this whole thing. I'll let you guys talk about the last. What was it called?
Out of Time.
Out of Time.
Well, and it doesn't give you. We've never gotten good context as to why she saw death and it was chasing her, but we never really got good context on why it was really only 24 hours until her death. And it seemed like throughout the entire thing she knew that. And I kind of expected get more of an explanation somewhere along the lines of why she thought it was only 24 hours until she died and all sorts of other things. And we don't get any of that here.
I thought it was implied at the beginning that the Vortex manipulator was... She could only... There was something about the use of the Vortex manipulator, the charge or whatever, that she could only escape for 24 hours. That was... It was thin, but it was at the very beginning of this whole mess.
I guess I missed that.
Because that was kind of the setup for it, but...
And it just felt like everything she'd gone through trying to get here, and it was just literally going back to the same place where it started. Solved the problem.
I didn't mind the bookend thing. That was kind of back to the beginning kind of thing. I thought that was actually kind of cool.
It just made the rest of the stories irrelevant.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's very true.
I guess that's my point of, why didn't she think of doing that in the first place?
Yeah, that is a good point.
About the time the wolves came along, I had a nasty suspicion in the pit of my stomach that we were dealing with a bootstrap paradox. That the whole story was going to wind up hinging on, well, you've got to go back and undo this. And then it did. And I was like, ah. And if there's one thing Who loves, it's let's go back into the beginning and fix the paradox. We've done it so many times, and it's not a cute or new idea anymore, guys. I'm a little tired of it. Having said that, I liked most of the way this one came out. I like the fact that she returns to New Venice, and it's a burned down, rubbleless, husk of an empire. There's nothing left. I liked the First Doctor and his interactions with her. And then when the reveal came, it was like, okay. And I'd kind of harbored a suspicion through the last half of this run that maybe Terry was the one that was responsible. But I kept putting it out of my mind because Terry, especially once she was given voice, just kind of became this amalgamation of Janine Melnitz and
Roz from Monsters Inc.
Roz from Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
And the Carlton the Doorman. I mean, she just kind of had this very likable, dry, sardonic nature to her. So I'll be honest, that put me off the scent there. But then when it was revealed to be Terry, I was like, aha. But the motivation for Terry, okay, that's great. You have assassinated or gotten rid of the entire Lesser Order of Oberon, and now you're going to take over. That's cool. That's the ultimate power grab. I love it.
Except we've already had it done.
And you'd think that you would have utilized Doom a little better, maybe to go ahead and knock off some of those people, or maybe that would have put her on the trail. I don't know.
I think had they not talked about, Brian wiping out the previous Lesser Order of Oberon for the new owners, it would have been a much cleverer idea. But
maybe Terry's the new owner. Maybe he did it for Terry.
Well, they should have referenced that then.
Right, exactly.
This seems like it's the third new owner.
Yeah. I imagine in this particular environment of work, there's probably always a power vacuum.
Yeah.
Probably always a now hiring sign out front.
And new ownership.
Under new ownership.
Under new management.
Yeah. But the biggest... Did you guys ever watch Tripping the Rift? The kind of irreverent animated series that was on Sci-Fi Channel back in the day?
Yes.
Okay. So I think it might have been the Christmas special. There's one episode of Tripping the Rift it was kind of the pinnacle of TV. They take their ship and they go back in time to the Big Bang. And the Big Bang is such a momentous tourist attraction that there's a little viewing platform with the little, look through the telescopes at the event and all this kind of stuff. So they land and they get out and they witness the Big Bang and they're like, wow, that's so great. And then they go to leave and somebody says, we should do it again. So they come back, but their ship is already parked on the viewing platform. So they have to move over and they inadvertently land on God. And they crush God beneath the landing gear. So now suddenly there is no Big Bang. What follows is these idiots' attempts to undo that. Over and over and over, they continually go back to stop themselves from going back. And it gets increasingly convoluted. I mean, we're talking Rick and Morty levels of insanity. And multiple times where they have to kill themselves before they land the ship to prevent that moment from happening. But then that ship crashes into the first ship that's there, which, I mean, it just goes on and on and on with paradox on top of paradox on top of paradox on top of paradox. And it's brilliantly funny. And I highly recommend you search out this one episode of that and don't bother with the rest of the series because the rest of it just wasn't very good. And I'll be honest, I don't remember how it actually winds up getting fixed. I just know that they do fix it. So when the first Doctor looks at Doom and says, well, it's obvious, you've got to go back in time and shoot yourself before you shoot yourself. That's all I could think of was, oh, we're stealing this now. And whatever mild momentum I was willing to give it just went, nah, I'm done. I just, not with a bang, but a whimper. The whole thing grinds to a halt and just became very, no, not so much. And it's so frustrating because I think there's so much potential here. the story could have been great. But I think or is it James Goss?
Yeah, James Goss.
Yeah.
I think James Goss needed to take a bigger hand in it, which
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what he rubber stamped, along the way. But I really think it could have been, instead of a big multimedia event, maybe it could have been 3 books or a couple of, or maybe 3 books with a couple of audios, a beginning, middle, and end, and rearrange some of the sequencing to just really make it work. And I think if they had done that, if they had the whole story and then broken it up over these multimedias, then maybe it would have done a little better.
Yeah. It's sad because what it does better than Time Lord Victorious is it tells a linear story, so it's a lot easier to follow. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Time Lord Victorious still ends up being better, even though it was convoluted, because it's can be Time Lord Victorious because it can jump around so much. It worked on a level that you could tell better stories without needing them to interconnect as much as important as it was for this one to interconnect, which didn't. So I think I'd like to see them do this again, but I'm with you. I think that there needs to be one big outline of what the story is, and not just what the story is from point A to point B, but how the character evolves, how the character grows. This character should have started out, I think I said this before, but should have started out cold and calloused and then become more sympathetic at the end and decided that, Assassination Game was not for her anymore. And unfortunately, because it's so uneven, and they go out of their way in this box set that we just listened to from Big Finish to tell us how she's the best assassin in the universe, and she's not. She's very inept.
If you are the best assassin in the universe, how do you even take it yourself?
I think what I'd like to have seen too is, her first couple of hits. I think she should have taken her first couple of hits and then realized that she needs a better way to resolve things rather than death each time, killing off somebody each time. And they kind of tried to do that, where there were certain situations where her target actually wasn't a physical being, and there was, they kind of skirted around that. But I think I think it would have been more interesting to have this character find ways to get around having to make the hit.
I think it would have been more interesting to have her not be an assassin.
Well, that's probably true too, but
because it becomes a point of, okay, yeah, I get she's taking these hits to try to find the doctor because she's getting to skip through time, but she has a vortex manipulator. Just go skip through time.
Yeah.
Which is more important, finding the doctor or making these hits?
Right.
She keeps waffling back and forth between which is her higher priority. And it's just like, come on, make a decision. Is your life more important, or is keeping your reputation more important? And maybe if they had explored that a little bit more somewhere along the lines, it would have made a little interesting subplot, but it was just allowed it to be inconsistent throughout the entire thing.
And maybe we needed Doom established as a character before sticking her in this situation.
Yeah.
If we were aware of Doom and had gotten a couple of run-of-the-mill assassin stories,
done Chase Masterson's assassin
instead.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Or even River Song. What if River Song was suddenly stuck in this situation where she had 24 hours to, it just the entire enterprise is inverted because they wanted to do another Time Lord Victorious. Somebody hit upon the word Doomsday and the play that they could do with that, and then built from there is really what it feels like. And it just the whole pyramid falls apart when you look at it in that regards. It's just, you can't stand it on its point. It's got to come from the other direction. You've got to have the character and the story to follow. And if it's not an interesting character or it's an inconsistent character, then it doesn't matter what story you put them in because it's not going to work. I'm being very harsh, and I don't mean to, but I feel like the BBC needs some help with their multimedia events when it comes to Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Call us, guys. We'll fix this for you.
Or just put Big Finish in charge of it, because they seem to have a better grasp on all this most of the time anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I would say that, except for...
Well, we'll see how Once in Future ends.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll give you that one. We'll see where we go from there.
We're waiting to see how that resolves.
All I can say at this point, the best thing about Doomsday is that it's over. I hate to be that, but I'm just kind of like, eh.
I think if death, had been a literal incarnation, it would have made sense why. I'm trying to wrap my brain around why that stupid. Just trying to wrap my brain around why she had 24 hours to find the Doctor. They don't really explain that really well.
At least not well enough.
Yeah.
So that way we can do 24 parts, Glenn.
Well, yeah.
Hi, I'm Rupert Booth.
I am known as Paul Ferry.
And my name is Barry Williams. Together, we host Time Ram.
Time Ram's a cruel mistress.
It's a random number generator.
That also.
We roll a number from 1 to 13, and that's our Doctor. Then 1 to 300 for the story, and then we ram them together. Even if it doesn't make sense.
Cruel, I tell you.
Time Ram, putting the wrong Doctors in the wrong stories, so you don't have to.
You're listening to Travelling the Vortex.
All right, Sean, what do we got coming up
inverted.
What do we got coming up on the schedule?
Well, coming up next on the schedule, we are going to take a look at some of the previous anniversaries, anniversary specials through the years, specifically 30 Years in the TARDIS, which I'm so looking forward to, along with the new podcast audio drama, Doctor Who Redacted, Series 2. We'll be covering that. And then some fun and games, as we will be tackling the Cubicle 7 role-playing game. And thanks very much to our friends at Cubicle 7 for helping to set that up for us. And hopefully that will spawn into a bigger thing that you all will get privy to later, because I'm not going to announce that yet. We'll do some more 60th anniversary tie-in stuff with Once in Future the Union. And that is the end of that
Aside
one, right?
from a coda.
There'll be a coda that comes out in November
year.
of next year. Yeah, which I had a theory on that, but then somebody blew that theory up when I got an explanation. But I'll talk about that when we review that.
Okay. And then we'll also do the next bit of Once Upon a Time Lord from Titan Comics.
Mm-hmm.
And more to come.
More to come. And, of course, if you get any value out of this podcast, why not consider putting some value back into it? You can do that by becoming a patron of our podcast. Click on that Patreon link on our website, travelingthevortex.com, and that'll take you to Patreon, and you can sign up, and that'll unlock more audios and specials that we put up there for you to listen to, especially for our Patreon members. And if you could just give $1 a month, that would help us keep the lights on here at Traveling the Vortex. Of course, consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you subscribe to this podcast, and we may read it out on the show. Let us know that you did it. We'll read out whatever you said. That bumps us up in ratings and recommendations, of course, and then you can find us on the various forms of social media. Anything else we need to touch on before we close this one? If not, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you. Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
Direction point! Direction point!
A Doctor Who podcast network.